Alright, what's up, y'all? We're back again, and I just wanted to get to talking about this real quickly because, if nothing else, let's just be real about it. If you follow the wrestling scene to any extent whatsoever, hardcore, casual, doesn't even seem to matter either way. I think it's very, very important now for us to acknowledge we're getting a Wyatt 6 back. Obviously, we've seen a little flashing of the QR codes and what have you, but for me, it's been really, really interesting because I've seen a lot of mixed reactions to that, which, as far as how I feel about it, particularly, it really doesn't bother me either which way. I don't have any particular feelings about it except for one thing, and that's the fact that, if nothing else, obviously this is being done in the memory of Bray Wyatt, and I think that it's important to acknowledge at this point that this is simply a way of just keeping his memory alive, as a couple people have put it, and I agree with that. And then, of course, it's actually bringing something new into to the table as well. Now, there are, again, mixed reactions going on about this, because a lot of people aren't fans of I guess it's been referred to as the quote-unquote over-the-top characters or programs or whatever. I don't really look at it that way at all. Really, my hope for this is that they do everything they can to properly honor Bray. And I'm going to imagine that a lot of this is going to be geared towards supporting Bray Wyatt's family, which I feel like is probably the most important aspect of this, and I applaud WWE just infinitely over and over again for that, because I think that's something that not enough has been done when it comes to that sort of thing. Especially because when you just think back to when Bray Wyatt was really starting to... Actually, I can't even say that. Like, can we even look at Bray Wyatt as even hitting his prime, hitting his peak? Like, I don't... I just thought about this. I don't think we can say that we have. Also, before I go any further into my thought, real quick, I do need to preface, this illustration that you see right here is not the final, I guess, design, or at least the final 6 or whatever, because, first of all, it's 7, especially if you include Braun Strowman, who actually is excluded from this, but this is the one thing that I could actually find on short notice, so please excuse me on that. But where I wanted to go with this is, and actually I'm glad to bring that up, I would like to think that Braun could be a part of this to some degree, somewhere along the way, and, they have him back to do big things, I would like to think, at least on some level, or at least to some capacity anyway. For me personally, as far as Braun Strowman is concerned, I'm happy to see him back and healthy, especially given the things that he's gone through, and, this loss definitely hit him as hard as anybody else did. Obviously, Eric Rowan, who's coming back to the company, and others, but he was certainly really significant in a lot of the storytelling that went into all of Bray Wyatt's programs. And for me, I think it's just hard for me to believe that at some point we don't see him involved in that. But that's again to where I gotta say, this has got to be about honoring Bray's memory. And more than that, doing as much a justice for it as humanly possible. And as long as they do that, I'm not really concerned about any aspect of what we're getting from this, who's involved, or any of those things. None of that really matters to me because, I'd like to think that with Triple H overseeing this is going to have more than just potential to go nothing but just the right direction. And with that in mind, when it comes to the right direction, or maybe the lack thereof, I can't really say that necessarily, but at the same time, however, in the same vein, unfortunately, maybe that's not necessarily true because, of course, we're talking about AEW, and I just happened to come across this here on Twitter, X, whatever you want to refer to it as, and it's AEW roster size sparks frustration ahead of pay-per-view, and of course, a lot of that's talking about how a lot of talent is frustrated, reportedly frustrated, given that there is such limited TV time, and, I find it very, very funny because I mentioned something about this before. And of course, Wrestle Talk has a post here where it says Dave Meltzer compares how AEW hasn't created future stars like WWE over the past few years due to having too many wrestlers on the roster and not enough young ones getting opportunities. I feel like I said something about this the other day, specifically when talking about Chris Jericho. And I appreciate guys like him, and this is where I also want to harken on the whole Wyatt 6 situation, It's real funny to me, because I'm thinking about, specifically, you guys see I talk about sports here just as much as wrestling, I also talked about recently the Pittsburgh Steelers having Russell Wilson and Justin Fields in their quarterback room. And it's funny to me, I don't want to talk so much about that situation, but more the Chicago Bears. Because I'm looking at it like this, especially if I'm a Bears fan, and especially given the fact that my father, God rest his soul, was a Bears fan, was a huge fan of Gale Sayers, Walter Payton, and pretty much a lot of the dudes that he grew up watching throughout that time in the NFL. But I mention all that basically to say specifically if I'm being perfectly honest, where the situations are like in here are, at least when you think of House of Black and the awesome things they're doing with Adam Copeland right now, I love that storyline. And that's another thing that I think doesn't get talked about enough is, it's not even so much that with the roster size is an issue, but it's also the fact, especially with there being so many signings, but it's also the fact that storytelling isn't as strong as it is with AEW like it is with WWE. I think that's the issue that really needs attention. It's one thing to have a bloated roster, but if you're not telling proper stories, shout out to my man Ango, but if you're not telling stories the way that you need to be here, then I'm sorry, your product is only going to end up going so far in the long run, and it's been proven, especially with the ratings that Dynamite has been seeing. But at the same time, the contrast to that is funny because with the Chicago Bears, you're looking at them, you've got Caleb Williams coming in, but now you're coming in with an abundance of uncertainty, even more so than what you have with Justin Fields. At least Justin Fields is something of an established starter in the league. Not fully established, but something of, because he actually has at least a majority of a full season under his belt to some degree. Now, when you look at this with the Wyatt 6 versus the House of Black storyline, there are just an awful lot of unknowns that go into that, and I think that's another thing that a lot of naysayers are willing to knock. But at least they're going to have that direction, but to this end, with AEW, that's wherein lies the biggest issue, is the lack of storylines. Not so much a bloated roster, but the lack of storylines. And more interestingly enough, a storyline that I think we haven't talked about as much recently is, speaking of AEW, is this guy right here, MJF. I'm seeing some murmurs that he might be coming back, and I wouldn't be too surprised one way or another. There are folks that are saying that he didn't have the surgery that was talked about. I'm not really sure whether or not that was necessarily the case or not, but he may be coming back. Hopefully this man can inject some energy into this product that certainly is much needed, especially for as strong as they've had things with Swerve Strickland being the AEW World Champion. I mean, again, where there have been limited storylines, there's at least some aspect of that with the world title picture. But at the same time, we got to wonder where a lot of things are going to go, because we haven't seen so much of the Undisputed Kingdom either. Speaking of storylines that haven't seen the light of day, and it was really tough to know what direction they were going to go without both an active Adam Cole and MJF. So hopefully those are issues that are resolved here with time, but certainly no issues that need to be resolved when it comes to my man Chad Gable here. I mean, and I've been putting some thought into this as well. It's really, really interesting how much this man has grown over the past few months. And not that he needed to grow, not that he's a young star or anything like that. I'm pretty sure he's in his 30s. But just in terms of where he's at as far as his character is concerned. And again, they're doing everything right with this, is WWE. I can't say that enough, especially given the fact that he's in a prominent storyline going into this weekend, which I won't be watching SmackDown or King and Queen of the Ring. I do not watch the Saudi Arabia shows. I've said that before. I'm not going to go any more into that. But what I will say about it, though, is that going into that, they're doing a lot of brilliant stuff, especially when it comes to the story that they're telling with him, Alpha Academy. And now you got to factor in the Creed brothers, and even to a lesser degree, Ivy Nile, who has been already interwoven into this, as a lot of people aren't talking about it the same way, but she's already a factor as it is, as she's been the tag team partner recently of Maxine Dupree, and of course has been imploring Maxine to leave Alpha Academy. But what I find funny about that, especially now, and I think this is the sort of Pandora's box that they opened with Monday Night Raw, or at least the story they had sort of told on Monday Night Raw, where Chad was talking with the Creed brothers. I wouldn't be shocked to see Ivy turn on Maxine in the long run, especially as what seems to be a new stable with Chad Gable is said to be very much on the way here very, very soon. I mean, it's obvious that, with Chad Gable having turned heel, he's going a different direction from certainly Otis, Tozawa, and Maxine as a whole. I mean, they certainly don't fit what they're doing with Chad Gable now, and it certainly makes sense. And I think the Creed brothers, along with Ivy Nile, make perfect sense, because now you can take this faction seriously. I don't know if this is necessarily going to be Alpha Academy or anything 2.0, but whatever incarnation this is, or whatever we're going to refer to this as, I gotta say I enjoy where we're going with this, because we haven't even hit the tip of the iceberg with this, and there's just nothing but good things that can come from this. So I mean, I'm enjoying it. It's been great. I'm thinking in the long run Sammy probably retains the title, but if I were also a betting man, I would like to think that if they wanted to move things along right away and have the turn take place coming up at the pay-per-view, which I don't think it would. I think this is going to need at least a couple of weeks to to develop, but at least where the Creeds and Ivy Nile are concerned. But yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if they decided to do it Saturday at King and Queen of the Ring. I honestly think it's more likely the next pay-per-view, which I'm not sure if it's Money in the Bank or Clash at the Castle. I know one of those are coming up here. But either way, I think this is something that we look forward to by at least one of those specific PLEs. Either way, y'all know what it is. Let me know what y'all think. Like, share, and subscribe if y'all enjoy it, and especially if y'all are new. And thanks for rocking with me. I'm going to get at y'all.